What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your YouTuber's favorite YouTuber, and I'm here, y'all. Finally back. Came back from a massive injury. Had grade 2 sprain on my ankle and my foot, so I'm finally back. Just in time for training camp. But today I'm going to chill on a lot of things, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you accurately predict your team's season schedule if you guys follow these 5 tips. Now understand this. These 5 tips have helped me accurately predict the Commander season for a very long time. But this time we can actually predict not only the Commander season, but a lot of team season. So again, you got to follow these 5 tips if you want to accurately predict your team schedule and walk away feeling like a champ, even if your team didn't do well. But this will actually take a lot of things out of the thought patterns that you may have that always hinder you when you try to predict your team's schedule. So tip number 5, track your team's changes. What that means? That means if a team gets new ownership, gets new front office, gets a new coaching staff, the free agency they get, the players that they draft, things, even injuries, track all that type of stuff, because you have to track it to understand what you're going to get in your team. Sometimes a lot of changes can be different for a team. An example is you look at teams like the Commanders, for one. You know, we went through an ownership change last year. Now we're in the first full season of our owner actually owning the team. Then when you're talking about along with that, he also brought in a new general manager. He brought in a new coach, and along with that, new players have also come in, along with guys who were drafted. So you have to sit up there and track all those changes, because if you don't track those changes, it's going to be difficult to predict your schedule, because sometimes a lot of those type of changes can also affect the team's chemistry. It can also affect how the team reacts, and also it may also be an issue of what type of learning players from the previous regime have to go through. You know, there might be stuff that they weren't used to doing, or the terminology might be different, things of that such nature. So always track the changes that's going on with your team when you're trying to predict your schedule. Number 4, evaluate your coaching staff and their schemes. A good example of this is we can go to a place like Pittsburgh, right? Where Mike Tomlin might have made the biggest mistake he's ever made in his coaching career, and that's bringing on Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator. Arthur Smith is known as a run-heavy offensive guy. A lot of his system does not include passing at all, and with you bringing in Justin Fields and also Russell Wilson, and along with having players like George Pickens on the team, and also us drafting Roman Wilson, you would be kind of concerned about that. And also along with also having Najee Harris there, but at the same time knowing that he's not the greatest running back, that might be a big problem for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Even though I think that there'll still be a good team because Mike Tomlin is a fantastic head coach, those particular changes, it now changed the dynamic of your team, because when you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers, they went into more of a pass-friendly type of concept, but now they're going into a run-heavy concept, and Arthur Smith is known for not being a fan of throwing the ball. So with that, you have to evaluate your coaching staff. Think about the scheme that a coach may come in with. If you have a quarterback who's more comfortable in a scheme where it's more run heavy, but now you got a scheme coming in where he has to throw more often. That might be a problem. A good example of that is San Diego. You got Jim Harbaugh coming in. He just came off a national championship season in which he sat up there and he chose to run the ball, to be run heavy in his college career. Now we have known Jim Harbaugh to go pass friendly, but will that be his concept coming in to LA this year, to the Chargers this year? Or will it be a situation where, because he brought his college coaching staff with him, will they be dependent on a run, and then you lose what Justin Herbert is supposed to be? So make sure you're evaluating your coaching staff. Number 3, and this one is a very important one. Evaluate the roster. Sometimes what happens is that you can be too much of a fan and just love all the changes that's happened on your roster. But you also got to understand that chemistry is involved, scheme is involved, player temperament is involved, attitudes are involved. So you have to actually pay attention to things like that. That's going to be very valuable. Look, understand this. You can still win with a 13th ranked receiving core. You can still win with a number 20th ranked running game. But the thing about it is that you have to also understand, if you don't have a quarterback that can possibly be in the top 15 of the league, then you also have to accept that. Here's an example. You're talking about the New York Giants, who's basically whittled away a lot of their time with Daniel Jones. You're talking about it's now year 6 for him. 4 more years, they would have wasted almost 10 years on hoping Daniel Jones would have become the quarterback that they expected for him to become. And to be quite honest, that still may not be the case. Another example of this is also Atlanta with Kirk Cousins. I know a lot of fans in Atlanta, I know a lot of fans in Washington don't want to hear this, but a lot of fans in Atlanta is not going to want to hear this either. What a lot of fans in Atlanta will learn about Kirk Cousins is what a lot of us fans in Washington learn, and what a lot of fans in Minnesota learn. Kirk will have all the passing stats in the world. He won't win you a game. And he won't win the big one for you. He won't get you into the he'll probably get you into the playoffs, but he won't get you to the big game. Kirk is what he is. And Kirk has been consistent from college all the way to the pros. He's been a guy who's been able to make a ton of money being fairly mediocre, and being a guy that can actually sit up there and not be, and will sit up there and be the cause of your team basically going into the dumps because you've paid them so much money. So again, you have to fairly evaluate your roster, because if you don't, you're gonna go into the prediction mode thinking that your team is better because you're a fan, and not thinking that the team is better solely because the roster and the scheme and everything matches very well. And again, with evaluating your roster, you gotta know if your running back isn't that great, then you gotta understand that it's okay that there may be games where the running game won't be included in the game because of the fact that your running backs are just not that good. So again, you have to evaluate your roster. Number 2, you have to take a deep dive into your team schedule. When you think about your team schedule, you have to pay attention to who you're facing, what divisions you're facing first. Then you have to think about what teams you're facing when it comes to that. And then you have to think about how does your roster stack up against another team's roster. So you have to really analyze those type of things. For the NFC East, which is where the Commanders play at, the Commanders see the AFC South, which is a very, very tough division this year. When you think about the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Cleveland Browns. So that's a very, very complicated schedule. That's a very devastating division. We also face the AFC South, which again may not be the greatest. The NFC South, which may not be the greatest division, but it's still one that can pack a punch because you have Tampa Bay in that division. You also have New Orleans in that division. So there are teams that can make noise. Then you got to also evaluate the 2 throw-in games that you were given. Again, with the Commanders, we were given the Chicago Bears, who may be better than they were last year, and the Tennessee Titans. So again, you have to go very deep into the schedule to know what you're doing and to see how well your team matches up against some of these other teams, because again, it gets more and more complicated as you go down the roster and you start comparing your team versus other teams. So watch what you're doing with that and really go into the depths of your team's schedule and really pay attention to who they're playing and not just letting your instinct take over. Last but not least, and this is the one that is actually the one that makes all the other ones come together. And this one is the one that I think that most people fail at because they can't remove it no matter how much they try to. Last but not least, at number 1, you have to take your fandom out of it. Sometimes as fans, we can forget that we need to take a more sensible approach to actually picking wins. And sometimes people predict things that are out of their mind, like things like, oh, if you have a team that doesn't have a running back or you have one real threat at wide receiver, then you may think that most fans are like, yeah, we're going to win 12 games. And it's like, yeah, but you only got 2 weapons. So you can't win 12 games and you only have 2 weapons. You got to have more stuff. And a part of that is taking your fandom out of it. Your fandom is what makes you say something, which makes you predict a number higher than you should. An example, like if you face the AFC North this year, right? Those games are very tough games. Those games are very complicated games. Those games are games that you can have massive problems in, because you got to also understand this. That particular division has a lot of things going for it. Almost all their teams, a lot of their teams have stout running games, and a lot of them have what is now dual threat quarterbacks. Other than, I think maybe Joe Burrow might be the least of the dual threat quarterbacks, but everybody else are all dual threat quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson with the Browns are a dual threat quarterback. Lamar Jackson, who's the 2-time MVP winner, he's a dual threat guy. And then you put in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. So, you have to really sit up there and analyze the fact that, hey, you may be a fan of your team, but you could go 0-4 with messing with that division. So you have to really, really analyze your team's schedule very well and take your fandom out of it. And once you take your fandom out of it, trust and believe, you will predict the perfect schedule for your team. So, like I said again, those are my tips on how to have the perfect prediction when it comes to your team's actual win and loss schedule this season coming up. First preseason game of the season is actually next week, August the 1st. We actually get to see the last year's rookie quarterback sensation CJ Stroud go up against this year's number 1 overall pick in Caleb Williams. So we get to see the Bears versus the Texans. early prediction, I do feel that the Texans will be a massive threat this year. All they did was improve their offense with the trading for Stephon Diggs. So now you got Diggs on one side, Collins on the other side, and Tank Dell as the multi-purpose guy. So that's going to be a very tough team this year. So again, y'all tell me what y'all think. Do y'all feel that I've told y'all what y'all can do to accurately predict your schedule? Other than that, your favorite YouTuber is back. Your man John Fortune, and this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.